Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Of course, it's a very lucky day that you're tuning in because we have with us again, as we do every Wednesday, Judge Andrew Napolitano. And nobody says what the judge says with the judicial authority that he has about the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our Declaration of Independence, and about how these trends that are going on today reflect what the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence means and how we've lost those rights. And Judge, thank you for being on.
Pleasure, Gerald.
You have an article that's coming out, The Bill of Temporary Privileges. Last week, this is unbelievable, the Director of National Intelligence. By the way, that's an oxymoron. There's no intelligence among these national intelligence clowns that have
Agreed.
spent trillions of dollars. And I don't know, tell me one great thing that they've done with all their intelligence to preempt something that was going to happen. But anyway, the data gathering and data concealing arm of the American intelligence community, masquerading as the head of it, revealed that in 2021, this is unbelievable, the FBI engaged in 3.4 million warrantless electronic searches of Americans. This is a direct and profound violation of the rights to privacy in, quote, persons' houses, in, quote, persons, houses, papers, and effects, guaranteed by the Fourth Amendment. Well, you know what, Judge? You could take that Fourth Amendment and throw it out with all the rest of them.
Well, that's why I called the column "The Bill of Temporary Privileges," because we don't have rights. I mean, a right is an absolute claim against the whole world to do something. Think as you wish, say what you think, publish what you say, worship or not worship, use your property as you see fit, exercise your liberties without a governmental permission slip, and be left alone by the government. We don't have these rights. They have become temporary privileges to be expanded and contracted at the government's pleasure. When this piece that I wrote about, when the news broke, it was a ho-hum. Oh, the FBI has spied on 3.4 million Americans. It's actually more than 3.4 million. It's 3.4 million unlawful searches. Each time they put a search term in, that's one search. That search could produce the personal private records of 10 or 15,000 Americans. So it's a lot more than 3.4 million. But there's no outrage anymore.
No.
Because 1984, George Orwell's novel, which was written to scare the daylights out of everybody, is here now. And it's a big ho-hum. Oh, you mean they only spied on 3.4 million? Big deal. Oh, you mean the Congress has made this legal, even though it's unconstitutional? You mean the Congress has violated the Constitution? Oh, big deal. What else is new? That's how democracies perish, when the government's growth and destruction of our liberty becomes so commonplace that we aren't even outraged about it.
You write over here also, when you talk about not being outraged, that the National Security Agency, America's 60,000 domestic spies.
60,000 people working for the NSA, whose exclusive job is to spy on Americans. About 55,000 of them are civilians. They are either direct employees of the Department of Defense or they work for outside contractors, and about 5,000 of them are military. Their job is to capture every keystroke and every syllable on every mobile device and desktop, every piece of fiber optic communicated data in the country. So your radiologist sends an X-ray through email to your treating physician. The federal government has it.
Oh my
You
God.
do a wire on your bank account to pay a vendor. The federal government has it. All this is without warrants. The whole purpose of the Fourth Amendment was to ban warrantless searches, but they are now so commonplace that the FBI, I understand their logic. Why should we bother getting a warrant? Why should we make an appointment with a judge? Why should we gather probable cause of crime and persuade a judge to give us a search warrant when we can search this stuff anyway and no one will even know it? That's what George W. Bush brought us. When Edward Snowden, a great American hero, revealed that the Bush administration was spying on everybody all the time, Bush persuaded the Congress to make it lawful. It is lawful because there's a statute that says they can do it, but it's unconstitutional because the statute violates the Fourth Amendment. And nobody seems to care. Well, some people care. There are progressives on the left, like Bernie Sanders and Ron Wyden, who's terrific about this. They complain. And then there are those of us who are libertarians and believe in the sovereignty of the individual. We complain. But the vast people in the middle and everybody in the government just sort of looks the other way.
Sovereignty of the individual, huh? That doesn't exist anymore.
No, Madison argued. It's very interesting. There's a letter Madison wrote arguing that the individual is sovereign and not the state. I mean, to you and me and the people who are generous enough to be watching us now, that's a truism. That's a baseline argument. But to people in the government, they don't accept that. They believe that the government is sovereign. They believe that we work for them rather than them working for us.
You know, and you look at the them. How could people take orders from these little freaks? Out of her mind, Diane Not So Feinstein, little Chucky Schumer, chins down to his stomach, McConnell, Mitch McConnell. Look at that nothing of a clown. Lindsey Graham. That Peter Schiff. You want to see a little arrogant boy? Who are these people?
You mean Adam Schiff?
Adam Schiff, excuse me.
You don't mean Peter, our
Schiff is a great
defender
guy.
of the free market.
He's a great guy. Matter of fact, I had him on.
Yeah, Peter, we love you. We just confused the names. We love you, Peter.
I did it, Tim, when I had him on the show.
He'll let you have it. How dare you confuse me with Adam Schiff?
But anyway, matter of fact, it's on our channel, the one I did with him recently. Great interview. Well over 100,000 people. So anyway, look at these clowns.
Nobody explains the root causes of inflation better than Peter. No, it's all one word: government. Yep. Government.
Yep.
It's not Putin. It's not the oil companies. They're not saints, but they're not the cause of inflation. It's the government. Period.
Yeah. I mean, look what they just did with this fighting the COVID war. They pumped in these trillions of dollars to artificially pop up the economy, and as inflation's skyrocketing, they got interest rates down to zero.
Right.
And now you saw the numbers that came out was like 4.5 million people quit their jobs.
Right. Because the government gave them enough money to live on.
Yeah.
So the government shut down the economy and then added $3 trillion to the money supply. It's a recipe for disaster, and we're paying for it now.
Yeah.
I saw a sign $6 a gallon for gas. It now costs more than $100 to fill your car with gas. I mean, that's just intolerable.
Yep.
And it's all the government's fault for too much money chasing too few goods.
Again, we keep calling it the government, but to me, we have to identify it's not a government. These are mentally ill people. They're mentally deranged psychopaths and sociopaths. You right here, every member of Congress has taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, yet repeatedly majority votes and the signatures of all pre-Biden presidents since 2008 continually reenacting Section 702. Congress has permitted the FBI to bypass the Constitution. Again, Congress, people. Thus, FBI spying is lawful because a state authorizes it, but unconstitutional because the statute violates the Fourth Amendment. So, Judge, to me, this is USSA and it is the KGB.
When this news broke, you informed me of it. And without even seeing the identity of who sent me the email, I knew it was you because the subject line was America spelled with a K instead of a C, which is, of course, the way we sometimes spell it to point out that we are slipping not so slowly anymore into a Soviet-style totalitarian government. But what startles me the most is not that Congress did this, because Congress is in the hands of the intelligence community, because the intelligence community and law enforcement have dirt on members of Congress. And they will coerce members of Congress. They will show them in private what they have on them in order to get them to keep voting for these illegal authorities and to increase the budgets of these intelligence community domestic spies. But what startles me, or what upsets me the most, is that there is, as I said earlier, there is no outrage, Gerald. You and I are outraged. Bernie Sanders is outraged. Ron Wyden is outraged. Ron Paul is outraged. Thomas Massey is outraged. That's it.
That's it. Because you go on to say the federal government is rotten to the core. Today in America, we have no rights. You know, Judge, we have no rights, but you know what we're going to do? We're rotten to the core. We're going to bring rights to Ukraine. We're going to bring them freedom. This is the hypocrisy of what we're going to bring freedom and democracy there as we're losing ours.
Well, remember George W. Bush, we're going to bring freedom and democracy to Afghanistan and to Iraq, and we're going to borrow $3 trillion to do it. What a disaster.
You know, on this war front, by the way, you know, all the news, I want to tie this into something. All the news now is Roe versus Wade. And the politicians are coming out, many of them, you know, how terrible it is to have abortions and kill an unborn. But you know what? These are the same politicians that go over to Ukraine to send more lethal weapons to kill people.
Yes.
These are the same politicians that vote for every war that there's been going on since they've been alive and in office. So tell me what's going on here. It's can't kill an unborn, but we can kill anybody we want in any country. Where did you see Joe Biden yesterday? At Lockheed Martin.
Yes.
Could you imagine the president of the United States going to the #1 defense contractor in the United States to ask for more lethal weapons of death and destruction? But, Roe versus Wade, now we got to get serious.
I have often thought that the Republicans who claim to be pro-life are just making that claim not because they give a damn about babies in the womb, not because they believe babies in the womb are persons, not because they believe the Constitution requires the states to protect life at all of its stages, but just to curry favor with certain Christian groups. And you've just demonstrated that. How can the same human being who's worried about babies in the womb being killed want to slaughter people in foreign countries just to force them to accept our version of a government? It just doesn't make sense. And even when Republicans controlled both houses of Congress and had a Republican in the White House, they could have stopped Roe versus Wade in its tracks with a single one-line piece of legislation. The fetus in the womb is, for all legal and constitutional purposes, a person. Such legislation was never even brought to the floor because Republican leadership wouldn't allow it to come to the floor. So these people are not serious pro-life people. They're duping the pro-life community. You can't be in favor of protecting the life of a baby in the womb when you're not in favor of protecting the life of a human being on the street in a foreign country.
Judge, what, being, the authority that you are, the judicial authority, what makes you an accessory to a crime? So, for example, if I know that somebody's committing murder and robbing people, and I supply that person with money and weapons, am I an accessory to the crime?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. It's a very, very, very interesting moral question, which has begun to be debated in the legal academic community. Those very few of them who believe that we have no dog in the fight in Ukraine. Are we accessories? And this is the Colonel McGregor, Phil Giraldi, Scott Ritter, very, very rational, sound argument. Are we accessories to murder by aiding the Ukrainians? And if we didn't aid the Ukrainians, wouldn't this have been over a
Over a
month
long time.
ago?
Yep.
And maybe 500,000 lives ago?
So, taking it one step further, more than just being an accessory to the crime, would accessory to the crime also be that we are, in fact, not fighting a proxy war against Russia? We are at war with Russia.
Yes, I think we are at war with Russia, and I think that pleases a lot of people in the Republican Party. You just mentioned the names of some of them. Lindsey Graham, to his credit, is open about this. I mean, his thinking is warped, but at least he's open about it. The others aren't even open about it. Chris Coons, senator from Delaware, Joe Biden's closest friend in the Senate, the one who occupies the seat that Biden himself had for 36 years, said it's time to consider troops on the ground. I'm happy that they are telling the truth, but it is dreadful if this conversation becomes commonplace.
Well,
Look,
again, it's
Ron Paul has released, you and I have talked about this, the tape of the CEO of Raytheon saying, the gear that the Ukrainian military is getting is stuff we've stockpiled in Europe and NATO has stockpiled. It's not our best stuff. And half of it gets destroyed by the Russians before it even gets into the hands of the Ukrainians, because the Russians are not stupid. They know where it is. Now I'm going to paraphrase the CEO. We're happy that this happens, because once the stockpiles go down, what are they going to do? They're going to come to us and pay us for more instruments of death.
Well, again, what you just said, again, Raytheon being the number 2 defense contractor. Oh, and the guy that's playing now ahead of the Department of Defense, Lloyd Austin.
Well, where was he before he was the Secretary of Defense? What gig did he have?
On the board of directors of Raytheon.
Can't make this up.
No.
You can't.
And then to have the President of the United States go to the biggest defense contractor yesterday and say how proud he was to be there, to Lockheed Martin, and that we have to send more weapons to Ukraine, to me is demonic.
Well, the McGregor, Ritter, Giraldi argument is that we have extended the war.
Oh, we have.
If the Russians had just marched in, they would have just seized whatever land they wanted without all the bloodshed.
Yep.
We have caused the bloodshed. I don't know how this ends. I mean, Ritter and McGregor and Giraldi are telling me there's no way the Russians can lose.
I say the same.
And that the DOD has told that to Biden. So Biden, it's tough to figure out his brain, because I don't know if it's all there. But Biden must either think that a World War III would make him another FDR, or that extending this war somehow improves his approval rating amongst voters in America. Because extending the war is not helping the Ukrainians. It's helping the Russians to destroy Ukraine.
But again, it's bigger than Biden. I mean, we talked about this guy, Austin, that's playing defense. He's coming out and saying, quote, we're going to weaken Russia. We're going to weaken Russia. So, and again, it's not only the Republicans, look at the Democrats that all support this war.
Yes.
I mean, it's across the board. They're calling for the war even more than, as much as the Republicans are. Again,
because you turn on Fox or CNN or MSNBC and you see war, 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 and you see all of it from the Ukraine side. So the media in cahoots with Raytheon and Lockheed and the federal government and the CIA. CIA feeds all kinds of information to the media. I know that to be so, having been a part of the media. They've persuaded the American public that Russia's wrong, that Ukraine is right, and that we must do everything possible to stop Putin. That's where we are now. And every week we talk about this, Gerald.
Yep.
It's worse. It's not better. It's worse.
They had an election, a primary election in Ohio. A guy that was running, he came from nowhere, this guy, J.D. Vance. He won the primary to run for Senate. He came out against the Ukraine war, the only one. And he got a load of media. They started hitting on him for it. Two issues that he won with, as I see it, and that I've been saying for a long time. He's against the government forcing you, to fight the COVID war, telling you you have to do what they tell you to do with the vaccinations, etc. And number two, coming out against the Ukraine war, saying it's not our involvement in it. And they really went after him big time. That got him a lot of press because a lot of people are against this war. You said it, the CIA in cahoots with the prostitutes, the media whores that get paid to put out by their corporate pimps and their government whoremasters, telling the people about the COVID, how we have to fight the Ukraine war. But in the hearts of the people, they don't want it.
Right.
And this guy won. He was an odds-on loser. Oh, and they're saying because Trump supported, that had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. He even came out against Trump in different times over the years.
Yeah, Gerald, I couldn't agree with you more. Maybe when people are open and honest, the voters will rise to the occasion. Maybe even somebody like Chuck Schumer could be taken on by someone who's against the war, against the vaccines, against the government telling us how to live and what to put on our faces.
And some man who is the judge of freedom, a man of peace, and really somebody that knows about justice and wants it to continue to be part of our lives should be the president of the United States. And that's what we really need is someone that is for we the people and not little sold out boys and girls that are bought out by the big corporations that morons and imbeciles call campaign contributions. They're bribes and payoffs. Now, we need a man like Judge Napolitano to be the president of the United States.
Don't say that too loud. You'll get me in trouble.
No, I won't. Thank you, Judge. See you next week.
All the best, Gerald.